February and March of 2016, the Canadian Armed Forces held Exercise Reaction Royale. This exercise involved the entire 2nd Division of the Canadian Armed Forces, all regular and reserve force members in Quebec. On their public websites, the Canadian Armed Forces lists the purpose of this exercise as practicing disaster relief. The real scenario is, however, somewhat darker. A large cruise ship goes down off the north coast of Quebec. As the Canadian Armed Forces evolve into the north to provide disaster relief, they discover that the ship has been sunk by a terrorist group. As their operations progress, Canadian Forces bases in the south of Quebec at Bagotville and Saint-Jean-sur-Richelieu begin to be attacked by other cells of this terrorist organization. But these terrorists are not the soldiers of the ISIS caliphate. These are environmentalists opposed to resource extraction in the north. Exercise Reaction Royale 2016 didn't just involve the Canadian Armed Forces. This was a whole of government response to these rampaging environmentalists. It also involved the RCMP, CSIS, CSEC, RNSA North, the Sûreté de Québec, and the Service Policier Ville de Montréal. I asked some prominent Quebec environmentalists and activists what they thought of this scenario. Here are their responses.
It doesn't surprise me, sadly, that they would do something like this under the premise that it's an environmental group, or under the premise that it's a natural disaster caused by an environmental group scenario.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's completely out of the reality. I mean, completely out of the reality that what people have been doing for the last decade, or I think people want to do in terms of like working on environmental issues. I don't think like sinking a cruise ship will solve anything.
I don't know. Well, I don't know all their plans or their ambitions, but I sure know that I haven't heard about that one before. I don't know. I think there's a lot of that illusion that well, in a way, it might be a question of budget and just spending money. I guess these guys are paid to imagine scenarios like that out of Hollywood movies.
I think what's more disturbing is who else is involved, which is the SQ and the Montreal or urban police forces, which we have always stated were part of the group that came to raid us on July 11th in 1990. I think we can see that it's all a facade about who is the real terrorist, and that the real terrorist is actually the government. And it's worked very closely with government, regardless of which party is in power, to undermine the rights of Indigenous peoples who are now working closely with environmental groups. And the issue of resource exploitation, regardless of the cost, has always been on the agenda of Canada and the US. I think it's probably happened long before, like since in the last 25, 26 years since the crisis. They needed to step up their game. I think it's extremely unlikely. Greenpeace has, they work in the waters, and they have had some, I guess what could be deemed as violent protests, but not in the sense of where someone's life is being taken. I think, if anything, there is this whole script that the Army is using in collaboration with the government and the other policing agencies to create situations where it looks like to the public that it's necessary to use this kind of force against people who have a justified reason to defend the land and the environment. And we see that happening all over the world, that the corporations are the ones who are really running government. So the military is really actually an arm of these corporations that are exploiting the land and resources.
Yeah, so I'm working for Greenpeace since 10 years, and I never seen anything like that or any plan like that. So when we we went through the Arctic Sea and like protest against like drilling on a huge drilling platform, but never had any intentions to jeopardize or put the security at risk. It's always like the main thing we want to focus all the time is safety first, but we want also to make the story big, so that's why we're going in those regions. So if they are considering having this kind of exercise in terms of like based on what we've done in the past, it's alarming, I guess. To see them taking those steps. Yeah, no, totally. And we noticed that also internally with document that we were asking by ATIPS and FOI, and we got that information that we are considering like on the list economic threat for the country also. So all those new terms that they are using against environmental groups, I think it's already affecting our groups or people, and people are getting more scared about like raising voice or standing up, going on the street. And now when we organize protests like a march on the street, we need to talk to people in terms of like, do we need to give our itinerary or not? Which like 5 years ago, nobody talked about that, but now it's a discussion, now it's creating division now. So I think they already reached to divide people.
Je pense que c'est ça. Je pense que anthropologiquement parlant ou sociologiquement parlant, ça démontre une division, une scission entre les pouvoirs politico-économiques et la réalité sociale et politique. De plus en plus, cette division-là fait en sorte que les gens qui sont supposés nous représenter sont complètement déconnectés de la réalité sociale. Je pense que le système parlementaire canadien alimente cette situation-là. Puis on le voit très bien. Au Québec, on ne sait plus quoi faire pour mettre dehors des gouvernements qui n'ont aucune crédibilité. À un poste, la commission Charbonneau montre les preuves de leur lien avec la mafia, carrément. Puis à l'autre poste, ils se font élire parce que le système est tellement rigide qu'il n'y a personne d'autre qui est capable de les bypasser. Fait que c'est juste une question structurelle à ce moment-là. Fait que, évidemment, dans ces contextes-là où la démocratie est tellement sclérosée, ben, pour moi, ça laisse s'établir des situations comme ça où les gens, dans des situations de pouvoir, sont déconnectés de la réalité, des réalités. Puis, bon, avec le gouvernement Harper qui vient de passer au Canada, et l'espèce de logique sécuritaire dans le néolibéralisme aujourd'hui fait en sorte que les agences de renseignement, les agences coercitives dans notre société doivent dépenser leur budget. C'est comme la police de la Ville de Montréal qui s'achète des blindés, etc. pour se battre contre qui? God knows, là, c'est juste une question de dépenser de l'argent dans le fond. Puis ça fait rouler l'industrie de l'armement. Fait que, écoute, pour moi c'est une déconnexion.